Let's talk about the life stages of masculinity. Do you ever find yourself wondering what stage of life you're in? Have you ever got stuck between chapters and stages of life, feeling a bit lost? Today's video is for you. I'm going to help you define what stage of the masculine journey are you in, what is that meant to be about, what's coming next, and what have you got to look forward to. Let's start out with the most obvious thing. When we use the word masculinity, especially on this channel, we're talking about the phrase original masculinity. What are we doing there? We're rescuing the phrase masculinity from all the hijackers who would like to attach it to words like toxic and other things. We're rescuing this beautiful golden word called masculinity, putting it back with original, because original masculinity is all about good things. In fact, it's about three things. It's about protection, provision, and empowerment. Why? Because that's how men were hardwired. That's why we were put on the planet, to protect those we love and the things we love, to provide for those we love and care about, and to empower others in our life to become their very best. That's why men are here. That's what men are about. And on this channel, that's what I'm advocating for. So I want to talk to you today about the life stages of masculinity. You might be a teenager, you might be a 20-something, you could be a middle-aged man, or you could be more senior. It's really important to understand, what are these life stages? Which one are you in? How does that affect how you live your life, and what might be coming up next for you? Because if you can't place yourself on the correct stage of your masculine journey, it could be messing up all kinds of things in your relationships, your career choices, your money management, your mental health. All kinds of factors could be interrupted by wrong interpretation of where you're at on the journey. I don't know if you've ever stood in front of one of those information boards at the shopping centre, the one that shows the 2D map of the centre and all the different shops and what levels they're on and how to find your way around the shopping centre. And generally speaking, whether that's a paper version or a digital version on screen, usually without fail, you'll find a dirty big red dot on that sign somewhere with the words printed in large font in red, "You are here." And I don't know about you, but many times I've done this and I've heard other people doing it. You get lost in a shopping centre trying to find somewhere, and you go to the information board, and the red dot gives you a cold, hard confrontation of your current reality. And you can stand there and you can argue with the board and say, I'm not in front of that shop, I can't be, because I parked here and I came through that door and I've been to this centre before. Guys, it doesn't matter how long you argue with that red dot, nothing is changing the fact that you are there. Where that red dot says you are is where you are. Now, why does this matter? It matters because we also need to understand where we are in life. Firstly, it gives us reality check and helps us to appropriate ourselves in the present. Secondly, and maybe more importantly, it gives us our first few steps to chart the course to where we're trying to go. If you're at shop A and you're trying to get to shop B, but you think you're standing in front of shop C, you will take the wrong first steps trying to get to your destination because you haven't properly placed your beginning point. That big red dot, that phrase, that statement that says you are here, is so important for all men to understand. Masculinity is a journey. And it's a journey of stages. It's a journey of phases. It's a journey of chapters. And every chapter is different from the one before and the one that comes after. And as men, we need guidance, we need help, we need mentoring to figure out what stage are we most likely in as a man, where do we come from in our last stage, and where are we headed to next, because that helps us to get the correct starting point so that we can actually aim properly at our goals. Let's talk about some of those stages now. The first one that I would talk about is the stage of the apprentice, or boot camp, or early training, or spring training, or pre-season training. It's typically taking place in your adolescent years, in your teenage years, where you're trying to figure out your personality and your strengths and weaknesses, and who are you in this world to yourself and to other people. And your learning curve is very, very steep. You're trying to figure out, what's my life going to be about? How will I achieve my goals? Who do I need? There are so many questions in this stage of development. And then it moves on to our second stage of our masculine journey that we could call the warrior stage. Typically, this takes place in our 20s and 30s, where we're out there in the business world, we're out there trying to make money, we're possibly starting a family, we're trying to achieve financial goals, we're learning, we're training, we're getting sharper, we're getting better. We're on the front lines of the day-to-day war, if you can see that analogy there. It's a warrior stage. We're trying to achieve and take new ground and to conquer and overcome our challenges. And it's a very, very powerful phase in our masculine journey. What comes thirdly after that is what we might refer to as the king stage. The king stage is where you're probably moving into your 40s, maybe even trending towards your 50s. And it's that stage of career and family life where you've still got the ability to be a warrior and you're quite proficient at it, but actually you've entered this new dimension now where opportunity comes your way to raise and develop other warriors. So many men get stuck in the first two stages. They get stuck at boot camp and never leave, and they end up being what we call these little boys in adult bodies, or they get stuck in the warrior stage and their life becomes very self-indulgent. It's about their own achievements and nothing else. It's important that you keep moving through the masculine phases of your journey so that you can place yourself and be at your fruitful best for where you're meant to be. In the king stage, our focus becomes bifocal. We are still capable of being frontline and using the tools and the weapons that we've developed our skills in, but another dimension comes into the mix where we now are also interested in raising the next generation of warriors. This is particularly true in family life. When you are childless and you're younger and you're out there getting it done and you're trying to achieve and conquer, great, it's where you're meant to be. But one day, if you're fortunate enough to be blessed by having children, you realize that sooner or later, life starts to become about their development and raising them up. It's natural and it's normal in the king stage. And then finally, as far as today's video is concerned, you move into what I would call the sage stage. In the sage stage, we are really generous with our wisdom and our lessons and our experience because we understand that the kings and the warriors need us desperately. And that if we don't actually pass on the gold that we've picked up along the way, all of those trials and traumas and difficulties that you went through in the prior three stages should be adding up to some incredible wisdom being passed down to the generations beneath you. And it's not that you're no longer needed, it's not that you've become redundant, but you have entered another stage. It usually happens in your 50s and 60s, whereby now you become more of an advisor and a consultant. You've got nothing left to prove by showing everyone what you can do with the weapons and the tools. We all know. The track record shows us, but nor do you need to be so directly involved in the warrior making process. That's for the kings to do. Now you're in the sage stage where the kings are coming to you saying, how do I add that extra 5%? How do I navigate this really tricky trial? How do I overcome that rare problem that most people don't seem to be able to solve? That's the task of the sage, and it's what connects our generations on the masculine journey. I don't know if you're a football fan, as I am, but one of the ways that we could actually couch this metaphor is to talk about the journey of a professional athlete, the journey of a football player. They start out in junior elite ranks, and it's like they're kind of stuck in this pre-season, spring camp, boot camp phase of their life where they're getting stronger and faster and more skillful and more powerful, and all of their hopes and dreams are caught up in, I hope I can make it to the pro level one day. And then one day they do get to the pro level and they enter what we already called the warrior stage, but in this metaphor, they enter what we might call a young professional stage where they've made it to the top of their sport and they're out there trying to prove to the old lions that the young cub has got what it takes to compete at that level. And they spend the next several years building up their resume, as it were, of what they're capable of and their market value as an athlete. And in due course, if they keep on progressing through these phases of their athletic journey, eventually they reach what we called the king stage, and they probably become the captain of the team or part of the leadership group, or they have a pivotal role as a playmaker in the side, as a mentor to young athletes, and they start to take on leadership responsibility for the development of others who are trying to make the most of their career. And then finally, the comparable phase that we call the sage stage is where we see some of these athletes in their post-career, where they might move into a role as an expert commentator, or more likely they head to the coach's box and they take up the role as an assistant coach or a head coach or a manager, depending on what part of the world you're in and what type of football you're watching. But they move into this place where they know all the skills, they know all of the athletic requirements, but their day for being on the field has gone. It's now their turn to be able to take a step back and watch the entire play unfolding to add their wisdom and their learning, so those kings and warriors who are still competing can make the most of their particular phase of the journey they're on. Guys, we need to understand that this is not just about your age. It is a little bit correlated, but it's about the stages of the journey of masculinity. You need to take some time to ask yourself the question, which stage am I in? Because you see, if you're 60 years old and you're still at boot camp, something went wrong. If you're in warrior stage, but you're not out at war and you're sitting at home trying to pretend you're a sage, you're being a bit premature. What if you're in the king stage, or meant to be, but you still want to hold on to the fact, I've still got what it takes as a warrior? You're not doing you or others the best either. You've got to stop long enough to ask the question, what stage am I in now? What stage did I come from? What stage is next? And embrace that reality. Remember right at the start of this video, the big red dot. You are here. So what's it all about? It's all about live in the season you are in. You might not like leaving warrior stage and going to king stage, but if it's your reality, accept it. Learn to thrive in it and realize there is just as much joy, just as much fruitfulness in that stage as the previous one. In fact, I can say from experience, it gets better and better and better. You see, I've been through the majority of those first three stages. I'm starting to enter more of a sage stage in my masculine journey, and I'm okay with it. I'm actually really happy with it. I've embraced it. I want to live in the stage that I'm in so that I can make the most of my masculinity. Whatever you do, don't lose your handles on the true definition of that word. It's a beautiful word. It's a powerful word. It's a necessary word. Original masculinity. Protect, provide, empower.